Hi, this is to give you a really quick video on how to ink your flowers and kind of give you a detail of how I did the ones that I show on the website. These are cut in color cardstock. I had them cut, but you can do the same principle on white. In fact, it looks better if it's on white. To give some of you kind of an idea of what I use, I have the blender pens, brushes. You put little foam things on the bottom. You'll see that in a minute. And of course I have my sponge daubers, which goes on your finger, works really well. I use them quite a bit. And then I use distressed inks. I also have Memento, but they don't blend as well. So I like to use the distressed, and I keep them all in these little tins. And they're by Ranger Inks. Tim Holtz uses them all the time. So what we're going to start with is I'm going to use the blue flower. And what I want to do is make sure that the lightest part of the flower is in the center. So I'm not going to touch that with ink very much at all. You want your outside end to come in. Sometimes I use 2 ink colors, sometimes I use 3. The iris that's on the site, that was done with 2 colors and on white cardstock, so it left the white in the middle. It looks to me really, really pretty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go along the colors of this cardstock. And so I'm kind of going to see where I want to go with the lightest one first. So in this particular one, I'm going to use probably tumbled glass. And this is where your sponge thingy comes in. I store it in the bottom here. So I just push that down, and then I have my sponge dauber. And this is the lightest color. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to go all the way around the edges. And as you can tell, it's not much darker than the cardstock is. And I'm trying not to go into the center all the way. These inks seem like they're dry, but they don't dry out very quickly. You can do a lot with them with water bases. I've done distressed inks for years. And you see where I'm just going around the outside of the petals and pushing down, and I do apply quite a bit of strength to that. And I go in a little bit, but there's still a light portion left in the center. So I'm just rubbing. And I have my mat here so it doesn't get all over my desk. And it washes off real well. In fact, I keep Clorox wipes in here all the time. And oops, and I know that's a tab, but I still color it to smooth it out. So we've got the coloring of the first color. The other thing that makes a big, huge difference when you're doing flowers is you have to do the back side. Because our flowers bend over, you want to do your backs as well as your fronts, which is why it takes me so long to do flowers. Oops, got that one a little bit too far in. Don't worry about it. That's the nice part about flowers, is nothing has to be perfect. And I'm just rubbing along the edges with this lighter color. And it makes it light in the inside. And like I said, whoops, and they bend. They do bend if you're rubbing real hard. And I'm doing this really fast to make this a quick video. Now that color is done, so I'm going to close that color up. And I'm going to take my little spongy off, put it back in the bottom, so I never mix up my spongies, although you can wash them out. Now we want to go with a darker color on the outside of here. And I find peacock feathers is probably the best for this. I use this color constantly. And all you're going to do is you're doing your edges. You're not doing any other part, and if you can't get inside the center, don't push it because you don't want to cover up the lighter color. And then you just go along and get your darker color. And you see I'm actually using the tip of my sponger. I'm not using the whole sponger, or whatever it's called. My terminology is probably not right. And then you're just going to brush it along. Now, because the center of the flowers are always darker, I'm going to take this one and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do the center, but not all the way down. So it's going to go, and I do round strokes. And I just keep brushing it. Make sure you don't go too far in, because you want your center to be darker. Now that's done, and you got to do the other side, which I almost forgot. You want to do both sides of it, and I just literally am doing, and I'm not perfect. You don't want to be perfect. These flowers don't have perfect coloring anywhere. And so I do this. And I know we all see Leo, who's the guy from Dreaming Tree, do inking all the time, and he does use a sponge, but it is different. It's a different way to apply memento than applying the distressed inks. And again, I'm going to do the center of the back. And I want that the darkest. So I actually think with this color, we should choose a little bit darker color to do the very center. So I think I'm actually going to grab a different color. Evergreen Burrow is another color. Excuse me. So I've used tumbled glass, and I've used peacock feathers, and now I'm using Evergreen Burrow. And all I'm going to do with this one is, just because of the type of flower and we know how it gets assembled, I just want to take it and make the center just a little bit darker on both the front and back. You're probably going to hear my dogs barking. Sorry about that. Now and that's how easy that flower gets done. And you notice my pressure is very little. Keep your pressure very, very low. You can push harder when you need it in the edges more, but when you're going around, just lightly do it. If you have to make 2 or 3 circles to get it as dark as you want, do 2 or 3 circles. And there's that flower. And then of course we all know how to, we bend it up on the score marks. And when you put this together and it comes together, you see how your center is darkened. Can you see that? I guess probably not with my finger in the way. But it darkens it really, really well. There, you can kind of see it better. Which is exactly how a normal flower is. It's dark around the center. Now that gives you an example of how to do the flower. Now to do the leaves, of course we want some different coloring. This is the light green, so you can do however you want. If you want it green, you can do a dark green, which is what I'm going to show you here. And for that, I'm going to use the sponge Dauber. This is bundled sage, and I'm going to use on here. And this has a totally different look. I do not use the big Dauber on something this small, because it would just make a total mess. So I want to go around, and I'm just going to do a little bit of highlighting here. And just run it along both sides, but keep your center lighter. And that gives you a pretty good mix of color, so it looks much more realistic than doing just the edges. If I did just the edges on this, and I'm just going to rub it in to blend it. If you do just the edges, you're going to end up, and these are great edgers, these Daubers, you're going to end up with that. Can you see? This is totally inked here, and this is just an edge done here. Even if I did the other edge, because you don't get much ink on the edge. So you could do some that way, you could do some the other way. But don't forget to do your back. A lot of people don't do that. Well, when we curl it up, you're going to have this curled. Or you're going to have this curled. I don't have my curler here right now. Or you're going to have that curled. And then when you put your flower together, it's plain. So you've got to make sure to have both sides done. It's probably the biggest problem that I see with people. Now that's how that comes out with that green. Now I'm going to show you a different green, especially on the light green. If I do Evergreen Burrow, which is that darker color I used before, and let me find my Evergreen Burrow. Nope, it's this one. That's this Dauber. If I do the Evergreen Burrow, you're going to see a big difference in the coloring of the light green. There's the difference in the coloring. This one here has the Evergreen Burrow on. This has the green on. So I think that it comes out better. I'm going to show you on the big leaf. Don't always pull out a color that you think, oh, it's green, so use a green. Don't always do that. I'm going to show you guys a few other things I use all the time to make my flowers. It just gives them a much more realistic look with the leaves. And do your stem. Don't forget the little stem at the bottom. And again, you're keeping the light color on the inside. The reason I do that is because it's really hard. Oops, that was not good. That was a smudge. Okay, we try not to get a smudge, but it happens. So what I would do in that particular case, because I do both sides, I'd put that on the bottom because I don't like smudges. So I would put that one on the bottom and just brush your edges. Just brush them all the way. Now turn it over and do this side. And you're just going to do basically the same thing. You notice I go in a circular motion. A circular motion gives it a much more feathered look and blends with the actual cardstock better. A lot of people just run it along the sides and it just doesn't work as well. This is the matte by Ranger Rick, and what makes it nice is it makes it smooth really well. I've also used a piece of like a glass cutting board that's smooth. In fact, I think I might have a link to that on my Facebook or website. And there's a video on that too. That also works really well with distressed inks. See, now that side doesn't really have any smudges. So that would be better than that. So this would be the main part that I see in the leaf. Now, that's really the easiest way to show you how to do inking. Now, the other thing that helps with the flowers, and I didn't pull them out ahead of time, so let me get them. Hold on one sec. Is I have these. These are tools for making flowers. They're put out by Mcgill, and they're different sizes. These little bowls, if you can see, they have little balls on the end. I'm going to get a big one. Well, there is a big one right here. See this little ball here? That will help you shape your flower. But what you need to have that is you need a mouse pad. Just grab any, as you can see, my mouse pad has glue and everything all over it. You're going to grab, depending on the size petal, because they come with lots of different size balls, and they tell you from 2 millimeter to whatever. Now this size petal I would use around the center, which gives us some nice rounding. You also can turn it over and curl your, if you go around the edges like I am with this ball, it curls your petal. And it just gives it a nice tip to it. Now this works really well on roses, and there's a whole video on my YouTube on how to make the roses. I've made roses for years. But see, it just gives you a nice curl to it. So when we go to put these together, you've already got your curling done. And if you want to do more bending with this training the paper, you can by all means do that. The other thing is in leaves. These are very pretty leaves, but we don't have any stems inside. So you can take your smaller ball on the mouse pad and you just put lines in. Don't push real hard because you don't want to go through the paper, but you want to follow the pattern of the leaf. And of course there we have veins that go out, and that's all I do. Now there's when you pressure on that, it's got, I don't know if you can see it in the camera. Yeah, you can. You've got the pressure of the vein, so it does show it. And I do the same thing with my leaves, just a little bit on the edges, and then I take it and just kind of go around the edge just to give it some training already, and that has a better look to it. So it's much easier. And then you can take either a dowel, I prefer a small dowel, to just take it and train it down. And this one, I take just a part of it and roll it so it has a little angle to it. See? And it just gives it a nice bendy feel, kind of whomper-jawed like normal leaves are. Excuse me. So that's really how you do it, and just be very careful when you do, not to practice your pressure. If you're not sure if a color is going to look right, by all means don't start on your flower. Pull up a piece of cardstock of that color or white and try it out, and make sure you like certain colors together. You don't want to mess up your flower and have to go back and cut some more. So I hope this helps everyone. If you have any questions, let me know. And there's a lot of cool videos I have on YouTube. Thanks everybody. Have a good day.